Welcome to Human Potential at Work, the show where we explore social impact, inclusion, and empowerment of everyone, including persons with disabilities. Your host is Debra Rue, CEO of Rue Global Impact and co-founder and chairwoman of Billion Strong, an identity and empowerment organization designed to bring billions of voices of persons with disabilities together. To join the global community and to donate to the cause, visit billion-strong.org. That's billion-strong.org. And now, on to the episode.
Hello, everyone. My name is Debra Rue, and I am the CEO of Rue Global Impact, and I'm the executive chair of Billion Strong, an identity organization for the 1.7 billion people with disabilities in the world. Today, I have Denise Reed on, and I'm going to let her tell you her last name because I always butcher it, and I hate butchering people's names. But I also want to do a quick visual description. I am I'm an older woman, a white woman with purple and gray hair, and I have on a starfish, a sea-themed necklace, and brown glasses, and some purple earrings too, and a green and white dress. And thank you for joining the program. Denise is with Zillow. I'm a huge fan of Zillow. I check Zillow all the time. And so she was with Microsoft, and before that she was with Atos. So she has a really interesting career, and her title is Director of Equity and Belonging. So I just love that title, Denise. I love it. But let me turn it over to you so you can say your last name correctly and give us a visual description also.
Sure. Thanks, Debra. So Denise Reed Lamoreaux is my name. You know, the French pronunciation can really trip people up sometimes. And believe it or not, I am not even French in any way. That was my married name. So my visual description is short, reddish brown hair. I'm wearing blue eyeglasses. I have blue eyes, and I'm wearing a blue and white dress. So pretty simple and very easy for you to follow along with me today. And yes, Debra, I couldn't love my title more here at Zillow because the word belonging is key. But of course, then equity is really what we're all striving for.
I agree. And will you tell people what Zillow is? I know that we really know what it is here in the States, but I just am not sure if people know what it is outside the States. I'm not sure if Zillow is a global company or not.
So Zillow is starting to branch out into more and more locales. As a matter of fact, later this year, you'll hear some announcements in that space. But it's a real estate engine, and the original intent of the platform was to provide a place where people could come to find a home that was going to suit their needs. And, you know, plugging in all of the different features they wanted, locations, etc. And the evolution of this platform since its inception really points to following the needs of the audience and making sure that, you know, pertinent information is given about resources that are in the community, you know, proximity to services and so on and so forth. And that will continue to evolve as we really look to be that place where you come to dream about a home, and then you find the home and purchase it or rent it from the Zillow group. So interestingly enough, Zillow was started by the people who started Expedia, who came from Microsoft. So, you know, a little bit of interesting techno history.
Yeah.
But pleased to be here. It's been a little over 30 days since I accepted this role, so still very new at it.
Yeah.
But so excited about the prospect.
You know where the bathrooms are now. Because you probably work from home. But one thing that, you know, something you said about Zillow is very important because they created it to be XYZ. And then we said, oh, wow, look at this. And we made it into something else because I know personally how I've chose to use it. And I mean, I follow it all the time. I love Zillow. But my house is not for sale. But I went out and I put a whole bunch of pictures out because people look at your house. It's fascinating to look for. I saw one of my neighbors had their house up for sale. So I'm like Zillowing it to see what they're putting it on the market for. I know my son, he bought a house that was 100 years old. So we went to Zillow and we looked at all the history, the tax history. I was like, oh, you had a fire back at this time. So it's become something that we love as Americans. We love it.
So yes, and it really has adapted to the audience needs. And I love how you use Zillow as a verb.
Because I do, because I'm a big fan of Zillow, and I don't know. I hope they're inclusive and accessible, but I have never heard any complaints that they weren't. And it's just funny. It has become a very, very important program here in the United States, and they have an app. So I have the app, or you can just go to the website, and I get little emails that tell me one of my neighbors had sold their property, and so my property values are going up. It's amazing, the information. And we do use it as a verb now, because we'll say, well, did you Zillow it? Because so I don't, and they're not even that old, Denise. How old are they?
About 20 years.
Are they 20 years? Okay. Yeah.
And, really have come into the forefront, and especially as fueled by the housing craze here in the United States since the outset of the pandemic. And, people can get their Zestimate, which is what their house is worth on today's market. And that is driving decision-making. Do I stay or do I go? Do I look for another house in another part of the country? Do I, now that I have more mobility in my working world, can I go and move somewhere? And back to your question about accessibility, that is something that we are putting a lot of attention on. It's not just the site, the website, but it's the sites. It's the services that people need access to as a result of, having to have specialized attention in certain spaces. And it's making sure that that information is part of the decision-making process. So it will constantly evolve. There's always going to be something new that comes up that people will want more information on, so that they can make an educated decision about where they're going to live. And
I, before I moved into this industry, I was in the mortgage banking industry for many, many years, 25 years. And there's so many moving parts to a home, and buying a home and keeping a home and refinancing a home. And a lot of that information now is placed right there in Zillow. So it's like, I don't know if it was meant to be that, but what it has become is just really, really powerful for our society. But I also wonder, I appreciate the work they've done with accessibility, but, and I totally forgot the question I was going to ask you, and it'll come back into my mind, but I just am so impressed with it, because it is allowing more people also to participate in home ownership. And it's allowing us to break down. I thought of the question I was going to ask you. Break down some of the diversity issues and inclusive issues. I've had America's mortgage coach on several times, and he's talked about how often people with disabilities, people in different diversity groups, don't have the same access to buying a home. Right. And so, but Zillow has done a lot of effort there. And then I'm going to tie the other question in. But right now we're also having Zoom towns, because, as you said, people are more mobile now. And actually, here in the States, people are leaving their state if they don't like political or medical decisions being made in the States. And so, how is Zillow participating and helping us figure out the Zoom towns, which is, it has become so powerful, Denise. I wonder if they ever thought where they would come. It is amazing.
It's hard to know what the original thoughts were when they formed the company, but this is all on their minds. And the Zoomtown approach is something that we're paying close attention to for every reason. And we want to make sure that we're informing people of the safety, of the proximity, of the longevity of purchasing a home in that region. Is it a good investment? Is it a risky investment? Is a Zoom town going to become a boom town at some point? And all of these things are really important for our buying individuals. And it goes across every diversity dimension, whether a person has a disability, whether English is not their first language, whether they're a first-time home buyer or they're looking for something for aging in place, whether they're, a married couple, and an interracial couple, transgender couple, whatever the case may be, finding that fit for them where they can move into a home and feel that psychological safety, as well as that sense of belonging, which is part of what my role consists of.
Right. And so let's talk a little bit more. Obviously, I'm a fan of Zillow, so I can get, but before we talk about your role, how many users does Zillow have? Do you have any? I didn't ask you to check in this. Do you have any stats about it?
Well, it is millions.
Oh, yeah,
And of
it's
course, every single day, it's new users. There's repeat users. There's like my daughter, for example, has become almost an honorary real estate agent for her friends who are in that first home buyer market. And she'll Zillow for them all left and right. She's found a fascination with it. And so we find that we have true fans of the system and who continually come back to it, sometimes just to scroll when they're waiting for, a bus or something along those lines. And it's really become, it's like a phenomenon of sorts that really engages people.
I know, because I'm like totally in love with it. And when I realized you went to Zillow, I was like, oh, good. And I don't even know if it's a good company. I just know that I love it. It has been so beneficial to me and my family, and so good. So they're doing stuff right. But let's talk about your position, because I know when you're looking at these things, you're always looking at it from internal and external, so that we all benefit. So let's tell us a little bit more about your brand new role.
So it's evolving as we speak, obviously. But, there's a large focus on that belonging word and on that space of equity and being able to be the individual that you want in the workplace and then in your home. So it's two sides of the equation, really. But at work, some of the things that I'm focusing on is strengthening the relationships with talent management, with learning and development, with our executive programs, with mentoring and coaching, and all of these related topics, so that as we're skilling our people to run that engine, they are doing so in a way that's going to bring the best possible result for not only all of the people that they work with, but for the clients that we serve. And so it's a big responsibility to get this right. And it does require a lot of listening. And so for the past month, I've been doing just that, listening a good deal. And I know that one of the first things I've gotten involved in is in the space of tech hiring and making sure that the tech hiring process is more equitable. And that's, a really deep niche kind of environment, because oftentimes during a tech interview, an individual will be asked like a stress-related question, like create a code for this scenario. And, that means they have to perform.
Right.
And the scenario itself is as important as the effort. What if you are asking someone to create a scenario for a gambling game, and it goes against their culture and their religion and their heritage? What if you have not ensured that the website you're sending them to create this code is accessible to someone with a screen reader? It's all of these back end things that really are at the core of making sure that we're doing the right thing by the people that we intend to bring into the company. And then once we have them, to train them, to guide them, and to grow them so that they can live their best life at work. And so you have all of these different factors to consider. And in the talent management space, what are you doing to advance BIPOC people, people with disabilities? What are you doing to recruit them? Where are you recruiting from? All of these different nuances come into play. But at the heart of it is that, creating those belonging moments for each other, ensuring that once you've landed a talent, that they want to stay and that they have reason to stay, and that what the reasons why they stay are rooted in what they need to be successful. And so it's all of that, and it will ever evolve. We're never going to be finished with this work, as you well know. And that's, part of what draws me to it so much, is that it is so open-ended, really, when you think about it. And yet there's so many specific things that have to happen for the open-endedness to stay in place.
Right. And I just want to go and explore that word belonging a little bit more. Um, I mentioned earlier on that people in the United States are moving from different, we're moving. And, you know, of course, we're using Zillow to try to figure out where we want to move to, which is amazing. Once again, it's almost like Zillow has become so powerful in everything they're doing. And with that, they also need to be very responsible with that power, right? So, once again, my perception is Zillow is doing a really good job. Just one customer, but at the same time, I see things happening like I've given Google some love over this, but Google recently came out to their employees and said, if you live in a state that is not supporting your family or meeting your medical needs, and we all know what I'm talking about here, but I'm not going to use the word, we will relocate you, no questions asked, male or female, we don't care. And I thought, when that happened, I thought if I were mayors or governors, I would be really concerned about exodus out of my state because, taxpayers and stuff. And so to me, that ties into the belonging because also I want to work for an employer like Google that is going to back us up. So, and I know that Paul Pullman had made a comment. CEOs side with your employees, not politicians. And to me, that's what Google did. And that's just one company, but it is part of belonging. It's part of the way to make people feel like they're belonging to them. So tell us a little bit more about how you're thinking about belonging. What makes us belong? And once again, I don't even know the people of Zillow except you now, but I'm a loyal customer and I love the product and I love what they're doing. But how do you, so I already feel like I belong to Zillow, but I don't know why I feel that way. I just love yeah. So.
And I think it kind of goes back to the care and feeding of the audience, right? It's listening to the comments that are made that could we see more about, or have you considered this feature, or I really need more on that topic to make my decision.
Right.
And we're actually taking our employees through this experience. It's a live virtually hosted session that is talking about what our key objectives are, how our people are playing into those key objectives, and how that impacts the people that we serve through that search engine. And it's been a really great experience. And it just started in June, and we've got well over 50% of the employees in the company through this program already.
Wow.
With the intent to get everyone through. Obviously, this is a heavy vacation period too in the U.S., but we're definitely moving the needle forward. And you kind of go back to that word belonging. And like you said, companies who are standing up and supporting their people, Zillow is amongst those companies, are really going to drive some of this Zoomtown kind of movement.
Yes.
And because of the great reassessment and everybody taking a look at where do I really want to play my game? Am I playing my game in a company that shares values that I do?
Right.
Or is it so opposed to who I am and what I believe that I can't align any longer? And how that all comes into play too with where you live. What if all that's available to you is against your core values in that particular locale? Well, then you will be moving, even if it's to take a virtual role, which is so much more common. And then those virtual roles have really helped the playing field for people with disabilities, for people who are caregivers or parents to young children. All of those, diversity dimensions have really been positively impacted by some of what's happened with the pandemic and the great reassessment and so forth. But we also have to be mindful of the fact that talent is everywhere and that talent can be as mobile as a company is willing to let them be. So that's another thing too to take into consideration as a company that's trying to lead equitably and making sure that what 5 years ago was considered suspicious home working is now the way people work, and that's not going to change. But there was a stigma attached to it, and there was this notion in a lot of employers' minds that people who worked from home weren't really doing anything. And that now all the studies that have come out about productivity and people's mental well-being and things along those lines, it really does make a difference. And companies that can offer that hybrid opportunity are the ones that will continue to thrive as we move forward.
I agree. I know another thing that you're very interested in and have done in different jobs, and you're doing at Zillow, is accommodations. Can you talk a little bit about that? Now, when I'm using the word accommodations, remember it's adaptions in the UK, but we're talking about the same thing.
Yeah, and that's part of what I'm doing with this project I'm working on internally related to hiring tech talent is, like I said, sites and sites. So websites and physical sites. And, although the physical sites aren't as prevalent perhaps as they were a couple of years ago, that's not going to go away. You're going to be called into, town hall meetings and things along those lines. So can the person get in the building? Can the person work in the building? Does the person's assistive technologies work in the building? It's all of these questions that continue to be important. And then the sites themselves. If you're putting someone through an interview, they're already nervous, right? They already have a sense of trepidation about that.
Right.
And you put them into a web space that's unaccessible. Well, you might as well have, just told them the interview is over.
Right.
Because then their nerves start to react. Then, you're trying to figure out an alternative for them. Frustration grows on both sides of the equation, and the interview does not end well. And we don't want that to be the case. That's where that equity comes into play, and it's really a critical piece of the work we're doing. And then likewise for, the Zillow platform, it needs to be an experience that's accessible. And it's inclusive, and the language we use and the examples we showcase and all of that is tailored towards the wide variety of people that make up this world. Because, you walk down the sidewalk and everybody on the sidewalk does not look just like you and does not move exactly like you and does not have the same destination that you do. So if we're only designing with one ideal in mind, we're missing the boat.
I agree.
And we know that when you design with accessibility in mind, that everything is better.
I know, for everyone. It's reusable. Yes. Everybody benefits from accessibility. We've seen it over and over and over again. Yeah.
Exactly.
Now, you had also talked right before we got on air a little bit about how you're looking at all, and you've talked about it a little here too, about how you're looking at all the different groups. I call it intersections, but tell us more about that effort, if you don't mind.
So you know what you know, and you think you're pretty savvy in this space of equity and belonging, and your heart's in the right place, and you really want to do best by your people, but you're not certain of some nuances, like say for the first time you're beginning to work with people in a totally different country than you're used to. How do they want a meeting structured? What is the way to introduce them? Is it, this is my colleague Debra Rue, or this is my colleague Debra, or this is Ms. Rue? How do I do this without offending? Right. And we have so many opportunities to create insights, but oftentimes because we don't know, we create an insult. And that's a waste of our time and our effort and so forth. But how do you know where to find this information? Do you have 10,000 hours to be going out there and surfing the web? No. So if you can package it as part of an equity and belonging curriculum and bring it to the people and explain to them the impact and the importance and the, just the everyday best practices that everyone should be living, then it becomes part of the way people work. And then that belonging factor has such an uptick because people are being recognized, just like at the beginning when you described what you looked like. 5 years ago, we didn't do that. And that makes such a difference to people. When you introduce yourself using your pronouns, when you mention all of the different things that make up who we are as people. That's where the real magic lies. And people who feel valued and appreciated, we know, we've read the articles ad nauseum about how they perform better. And they remain loyal, and they bring their friends to come work with them too, because the infrastructure is there to support.
Right. And you know what? I'm going to give it just a little bit of love to Zillow. But why? Why did you decide to go to Zillow?
It's an exciting opportunity to come in at a time where this company is so committed to doing this right, and the opportunity to gather with true professionals whose aim is to be known as the number one. It's an exciting opportunity. And I'm of a certain age. 5-10 years ago, I wouldn't have gotten this chance to take another leap at this age in my career. And so I'm extremely flattered that they took my application seriously and so forth. And, it gives me the chance to look full circle at where this work has come in the past 10 years or so, and use what I know works, adopt, bring in the new, and really provide a platform, both internally and externally, that's going to lead to success.
Yeah. And they're lucky to have you. So I was very excited to hear that you went over there. I just, yeah, it's good for our community. That's, I love to see people that I know get it move from company to company, because there's value to the community. So thank you for those.
Thank you.
So, all right. And this is not a fair question, but if you looked back, when you look back in the future on your career at Zillow, what do you hope to accomplish? What do you hope to do for them? Well, no, yeah.
It's a great question, because I have so many ideas in my head of what I would like to see happen. And I know that they're all possible, and that the people that are part of this organization have that curiosity to come along the journey. So what I want to really be able to do is make this company, the people who work for the company, as well as the platform that people access to find where they're going to live, as really as comprehensive as possible, as inclusive as possible, and as fun as possible too. Because, part of this, when you think about it, is kind of gamification.
Oh, yes.
And if you don't make it enticing for people to keep coming out there, then they lose their interest. So it's staying at that cutting edge. It's providing the best possible, experience that you can, regardless of why that experience is important to that person.
Right. Oh, well said. Well said. All right. So I always end the program making sure that people know how to get hold of you. So give us Zillow's website, and I know you're on LinkedIn, but anyway, I know some people will sometimes give their emails, but we do have a lot of people all over the world listening to this program. So I just say that to you.
Yeah. So you can reach Zillow by just going out to Google and typing in Zillow. I am on LinkedIn. I do love to connect with people through that platform. So never feel that you couldn't reach out to me and, form a connection with me, because that's where some of the biggest magic lies, is in those connections you make through the platform. I'm on Twitter, although not as Twitterific as you are, Debra. I am on Twitter, and, I do respond, because again, it goes back to my curiosity and my need to connect people. I have this thing where I like to help people connect so that they can learn from each other and have a positive outcome.
Right.
So thank you for letting me be here today and kind of espouse on what's going on.
I agree. And I will let the audience members that are outside the U.S. know that Zillow is spelled Zillow, which but maybe that's the way everybody would spell it anyway, but me and my spelling brain. So just in case, I know most Americans, if not all Americans, know how to spell Zillow, but it is an amazing program. So even if you're outside the U.S., go and look at www.zillow.com, because maybe they're coming to your country, or maybe you start nagging them and say, come to my country. But we have fallen in love with Zillow, and now I love them more because they hired you, Denise. And we want to be included. We want to belong. We want to be able to participate. So I'm grateful for that. And as Denise said, she will answer your questions and stuff because she likes to give back. That's sort of a lot of who we are in this industry. So she will respond to you and answer your questions. But we wish you great success. I want you to come back on and give us an update as you look at.
Absolutely.
And
as we unfold the curtain, we'll let
I
you
know it's exciting. So let me give you the last words, Denise.
So, take the time to understand what's going on in this space of accessibility, assistive tech, disability rights, and really apply that lens of inclusivity and belonging and equity. And when you do that, it really does, as Debra and I both said, benefit everyone. And if you design with inclusivity and accessibility in mind, then the platform is just that much stronger. And then the usage increases and the reputation soars, and you've got a product that's beyond viable at that point.
Which is why Zillow is lucky to have her. So anyway, thank you so much, Denise. Thank you, Zillow. Thank you to Kevin, my producer, and we'll talk to everybody next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.
You've been listening to Human Potential at Work. To learn more about Rue Global Impact, visit rueglobal.com. And to learn more about Billion Strong, an identity and empowerment organization designed to bring the billions of voices of persons with disabilities together, you can join the global community and donate at billion-strong.org. That's billion-strong.org.